welcome to the kitchen. I'm in the middle of making a batch of green tomato chutney, so I thought I'd bring you along and share with you the art of making it. It's a real family favourite and quite a few friends around the village really enjoy it too, so we sell it on our stall at the front of the house. So yeah, let's get cracking. So I've chopped up my green tomatoes. There is a few red ones in here. I tend to just pick whatever's in the greenhouse. There are a few red ones still in there ripening, so I picked a few of those. Some of the ones that weren't quite ripe aren't going to ripen, so I picked those. But most of what's in here is green tomatoes. So the recipe does say not to bother with perfection, but I found by chopping them up into much smaller pieces it really makes for a better, finer chutney. Otherwise it gets quite lumpy. In the process now of cutting up my red onions, so it's an equal quantity of tomato and red onion. You can use whatever onions you like, but the red ones are sweeter, so they just give the chutney a slightly sweeter flavour. So just peeling those and cutting those up. There's about 1,000,001 ways to chop an onion, so this is the way I do it when I'm making my chutney. Now, it doesn't have to, I'm not a chef, so no comments on my onion chopping skills please. And then that just goes into the bowl, and then once I've done that I'll add those to the tomato mix. Right, the last couple of onions. There was a kilo in the bag and I need a kilo, so with cutting the topping and tailing them and taking half the skin off, there's probably a little bit less, but that doesn't matter. This isn't an exact recipe where you have to have exact quantities. Oh, it's a rough this and a rough that. As long as the amounts are very similar, it doesn't matter. So just finish this off and we'll see how much onion we have got. I haven't got any more anyway, so I can't add to this. Again, I think I said earlier about the tomato. Sorry about the dog, bear with me a second. Dog suddenly started barking at nothing. As I said earlier, the tomatoes, finally chopped the tomatoes up. I also did the same with the onions. The recipe does just say roughly, but they're roughly finely chopped. Just to, but it gives, I think it gives us slightly less larger chunks in the actual chutney, so I found this works out a lot better over the last few times I've done this. So let's have a look and see what we've got. So this recipe is actually, I'm doubling up on what I should be using, so it's about 900 grams, about 100 grams of onions short, but I think that'll do. That will do the job. So there'll be tomatoes and my onion. So I shall pop those at the end of the counter. I've also got 3 jalapeno chilies that we've just picked from the garden, so I'll do those as well. What I tend to do with these is I'll just de-seed them. I don't find these are particularly hot, so I'm not too worried about gloves, but normally when I'm preparing chilies I'll wear a pair of gloves just to kind of, and then the last thing you want to do is rub your eye or anything when you've got chili juice all over them. The recipe, original recipe doesn't call for chilies, but I find that just chucking a couple in, whatever you've got really. We've got a load of jalapenos, so I should put some jalapenos in. But you know, if you've got cayenne, or you've got any of the other ones, then any will do. We don't have to, you know, it's entirely up to you. Just take that middle part out. I always take the middle part out, de-seed them, just pop those in there for a minute, dispose of the seed. Just going to give these a quick wash. Right, these have literally just come out of the garden, so they've just been picked straight off the plant. And again, just finely chop these up, just into small pieces. I think the smaller the bits are, obviously the finer the chutney will turn out. You don't want huge great chunks of tomato or onion on your cheese sandwich or your ham sandwich. Well, apologies for that. The battery ran out on the camera, so I've had to put it onto charge and get some charge back into it so I can finish off the chutney. So while I was waiting for the camera to charge, I have just got my rest of my ingredients together. So we've got tomatoes, we've got the onions, I've got raisins and brown sugar. I use soft, light brown sugar because it just helps us a slightly lighter chutney. I've got my vinegar, and I've got my top secret spice mix. Okay, so all we do now is literally throw it in the pan. So I'll take all the stuff over there and I'll bring you along with me. Okay, so it really is now just a case of throwing it all into the pan. So let's just chuck it all in. So there's the tomatoes, there go the onions, sultanas and brown sugar. The top secret spice mix. And the vinegar. Just a quick note on the vinegar. I use the white distilled malt vinegar rather than the dark brown malt vinegar. Again, it just gives it a slightly lighter appearance. You can use whatever. The dark stuff gives it a darker appearance, that's all. It doesn't really taste much different, but I tend to prefer to use the lighter stuff. Pour that in. Make yourself a wooden spoon. Give it a mix. As I said earlier, I'm doing a double quantity, so I would normally use a smaller pan for this, because I'm doing a double quantity batch. I'm using a big pan. Mix it all up. Drop it on the heat. So what I tend to do is bring it up to the boil, and then once it's boiling, turn the heat down to a simmer and let it simmer until it's done. The recipe again says a couple of hours, but it is really a case of just let it simmer down until it is ready. Don't overheat it, otherwise it'll burn, but it's a case of, yeah, you know when it's ready because it looks right, it feels right. So yeah, we'll leave it there and come back to it later. Okay, so the chutney's been cooking away for, well, I've got no idea how long it's been cooking for, at least 2 hours, and it's starting to get there, it's starting to thicken up a bit. So if you have a look, so if I drag the spoon through, you'll see it starts to leave almost like a Moses type parting of the ways. It's not quite there yet, still a little bit on the runny side. I'll keep it probably cooking for probably another hour. But it is getting there. It smells absolutely delicious. It's starting to look more like the finished product. Okay, so the chutney is nearly done, and there's one final thing that needs to be done. And Ria always likes to do this, and she puts the special ingredient in. And what's the special ingredient, Ria?
Love.
And Ria's stirring in. It's a real family recipe, this one. Okay, so the chutney is now ready. You kind of know when it's ready because you can kind of smell it. It looks the right consistency and everything. A good test is what I call the Moses test. So if you just pull a spoon back through, you can see that it kind of, you have the parting of the chutney. So that's kind of ready. So it's thick enough not to flood straight back in. So we'll do that. So what I've got here are some glass jars, and I have my chutney jam funnel thingy. So pop my chutney in there. So just bear with me. I'll try this one-handed. I've cleaned up, sterilised 12 jars because the normal recipe will make around 6. So we popped it into one of the jars. Move a bit of the camera. So there we go. And then I'll fill up the rest. Okay, and so after a few hours simmering away in the pot and all that chopping and preparing, we have 12 jars of delicious green tomato chutney, which doesn't look very green, it's brown, but it tastes delicious. Did do a taste test as I was bottling it up, and it's a really, really good flavour. So that's it, green tomato chutney from Garden on the Green.